Kyobo is back after 10 years. The South Korean company originally made the MIRASOL back in 2012. That didn't really do anything for them, as they weren't even technically using e-paper, instead an alternative technology that they soon abandoned. Well, guess what? Now they're here with e-paper. This is the interestingly named Kyobo Sam 7.8 Plus Second, or the R-R-LLX-EB401-E reader, which makes it the longest actual model number in our industry. This unit is white labeled almost entirely from Meebook on the inside and the outside, with only a few subtle differences. Want to see those differences? Let's take a closer look. Styling, this thing looks good. It looks very similar to Meebook, but it's a little bit different. It's got a thicker bezel. It is in white, of course, and it has a matte backing, whereas the Meebook looks a little bit different than this, but it is tooled similar to the Meebook. And we're going to say Meebook a lot because it is obviously that they went to them for the white label, because Kyobo has never made e-readers really in the grand scheme of things. They made the MIRASOL screen technology way back when, took 10 years off, and now here they go again. So you got an SD at the side there, and you have speakers down below as well as a USB-C. How heavy is this? And as always, for frame of reference, a Kindle is around 200 grams. So what are we sitting at here? 303. We're not even going to talk about the pen because the pen is very, very normal. It's the regular pen you use when you don't know what pen to use. Fortunately and unfortunately, this is the exact same thing as the Meebook. Other than the shell being slightly different, the operating system and the UI is precisely identical. The only difference we found is that it wasn't called the Meebook P78. It is the Sam 7.8, which is 78. It's got the exact same layout in every conceivable way, even down to the settings, even down to the top bar. Now, we're not saying this is a positive or negative thing. We just want you guys to know that some manufacturers, like Tolino, for example, they go with Rakuten. Sam very well might be going with Meebook for their production. Now, we don't have a 100% quote on this, but that is exactly what is looking like from the overall UI. You do get some proprietary stuff here. You get some Kyobo market stuff we'll look at in a little bit. You can change the overall layout. As you saw in the unboxing, you can go to user settings, you can go over to display, and then from there you're actually able to change the layout of if you want it to be minimalist, if you want it to be a lot more Android-esque, where it's the traditional layout, etc. The top drop down, as we showed you a second ago, is going to have your speed mode. It's going to have A2, and it's going to have IMG 256, which is grayscale 256, and it allows it to be a little bit more smooth. There's really no detriment to having it on, so I don't know why there's a toggle. You should never turn it off. It looks so good as is. If you click the little glow light button, you get customized day, night, and bed. Glow lights used to be a topic of discussion to see how good they are, but now they use a gel layer, so you're not going to see any inconsistencies from top to bottom. They've pretty much stabilized. We have a menu here in the bookstore, and everything seems to be in Korean, and there doesn't seem to be a way to change anything into another language, and you do have to sign up before you get access to the bookstore. And that is a specific Kyobo bookstore right there, and then you have this one as well. So these are the two proprietary apps, and it does seem that you do need an email or a password in order to get through to whatever these have to offer. So we are going to scan through this one, click OK, and just go to the first page of whatever we can see. This looks like you're able to go and look through libraries of sorts or even search for books, but it looks like we don't have anything in our library, so we're just going to search for something that is on the pre-recommended selection here. However, it does seem that no matter what you click on, it does always require you to sign in with certain credentials that you don't necessarily have right out of the gates. They give you a phone number, but it undoubtedly always just only going to be in the Korean language. So unless you speak Korean or read Hangul or a combination of both, the proprietary apps that are on here do not really do you that well in terms of usability. But you can sideload in your apps here, and you can go to storage and you get a file manager. So that definitely does help, because this allows you to now sideload things in. And much like Meebook, all you have to do is just dump things in any folder. It's going to categorize everything. So for example, we put an EPUB in a folder, and there it is. It categorizes into EPUB. So you can open with Kyobo ebook EINK or Sam OS. We're going to choose Sam OS because choosing the Kyobo one actually doesn't allow you to read anything, and it doesn't really work. So what do we have here? We have the e-reading experience on a side-loaded book. That is all we can do, so that is all you will see. Do the table of contents work? It does seem to work. Now, you know what? So far out of the gates, this isn't doing anything to wow us. It's using older hardware. It's using kind of the same thing we've seen in other iterations. But we do have the ability to long press on something, which is a saving grace, seeing that one of the two ebook apps doesn't even work. So let's check out TTS, because we got to get something that really screams, I am different out of this thing.
Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. Holly, mistletoe, red berries,
Wow, that was one of the worst TTSs I've ever heard. It was robotic, it was sloppy, it was slow. Even if you change the speed, when it goes after a period into another section, it just arbitrarily decides, okay, this is my next section I'm going to read. Let me take 6.5 seconds to figure out what I'm going to do. Really poor system when it comes to TTS. If you sideload in something better, that would be great, but out of the gates, that is what we are looking at. Much like Meebook, at the bottom here, it says enable Google Frame. So clicking on that, we now have the ability to put in Google Play. And why this is important is because not only does this make this the 12th manufacturer to use Google Play, it now allows you to sign into Google Play and utilize them, so we can now check out Google Play books, because the original onboard experience is awful, so we don't really want to use that. We're going to go with something that is just a little bit more tried and true. Of course, Google Play is going to be your be-all, end-all, because it takes you anywhere and gives you everything. And with this having speed mode and onboard audio means you can do so much more than just ebooks. But if you wanted to do ebooks, you have the ability to do that here. You can go to an ebook. In the books section, it's one of the 3 things at the bottom, and click free sample. What this is going to do is prompt you to download the Google Books app. Once you do install it direct from the device, regardless of country, you're in. Once you're in Google Books, oh, it's a breath of fresh air. I love this. I absolutely love Google Books. I'm not advocating for it, but it's just so good. It's so much better than the stock experiences on this unit, one of which you can't use. One is slow as a monkey's foot. I don't know what that means, but either way, you do have the ability to long press. You get far more options. You get highlights, you get translations, you get all of your stuff down below. It's so much quicker, it's so much snappier, and you get these nice patron animations that can be mitigated with the speed modes. I absolutely love Google Play Books, and we've already covered books, so we're just going to go out of this real quick, because the thing we want to look at most importantly is manga. And why I say most importantly is because if you look at Meebook's social media campaigns, whether it's on X, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, they always prioritize manga. They have collaborations with Indonesia, they have collaborations with Vietnam, and they really always say, you're looking for manga, grab a Meebook. And this really does feel it's the same, so naturally you get that manga experience on it. And why I love Google Books for manga is because despite us being in Japan, everything's written in Japanese. If you were in North America, you can do the same thing. You double tap and it expands the manga speech bubble. And why that's important is because it doesn't just zoom it in with some terrible background. It's actually keyed out. Look at that. And it's not any more blurry than it was before. It's actually its own individual rendered image that is stored, that is assigned to get that and push it up towards you. It's absolutely phenomenal. I do like using these smaller units, 7.8s, 7s, 8s for manga, because it better represents the real manga that you would get at a convenience store or a bookstore in Japan. I mean, this is a disgusting manga just looking at it out of the gates, but move past the fact that these guys look like members of KISS and just look at the fact that this is a very good experience. It's very fast with speed modes. It looks even better with the speed mode off. I really wish you would have a couple more layers of speed modes just to round off your dimension and leave it up to the user to figure it out. But they give you enough to get by, and there's really nothing wrong with the overall usability. Everyone wants a piece of the pie when it comes to note-taking. Well, this is a UI we've seen many times before. In fact, it's a little bit worse on the Kyobo because look, most of the imagery is actually hidden under the bezel. And we're not faking this, it's actually tucked under there. So, a poor mistake on their end to not kind of refine things. And this has to do with using Meebook's overall experience, but using a different shell. It's tooled in such a way where they put a flatter and wider bezel than they should have. They should have backed it off to there, thus revealing more of the screen and actually giving you a thinner bezel design, which a lot of people strive for. And just for fun, we're going to be using an Onyx Nova Air pen on here because it uses the same tip anyways. So writing on the screen, it is a flush screen and bezel and feels exactly like the Meebook, of course, so you get a decent amount of grit, but not a lot. It is very slippery, all things considered. It does move around on the screen pretty drastically and is very similar to a smartphone, more so than a Remarkable or a Fujitsu or even a Kindle Scribe that has a little bit more grittiness in it. So if you're looking for realism in terms of how it feels to write on paper, it is not for you. But that's a subjective thing. Some people like writing on a smoother surface. I don't, but a lot of people do. We have some pen choices at the bottom corner here, if I can pull that up. The hitbox is really poorly hidden down there. I'm not a big fan of that. You have pen, pencil, and I believe you have a marker. No, you don't. You do not. Now let's check out one thing that is a little bit of a problem with some devices, and that is the line thickness, not the thickness chosen by the palette, but the thickness via pressure sensitivity. So we're going to let's choose the biggest possible one and do the lightest possible line, and now the heaviest possible line. That's pretty good. That's a good disparity between the two. Something like the Pocketbook InkPad X Pro actually doesn't have a very good variety of pressure sensitivity to work with based off of how heavy you press on the screen. This one does. It's got these nice little hairlines and it's got these thicker bleeds, so that one can easily be chosen back and forth without having to visit the palette, unlike some devices that require you to do so. You have the ability to change between a bunch of erasers, and you have this which allows you to insert new page, shape, text, and image. It's very bare bones. They don't really give you a whole lot to work with. You stamp something on the page like a square, and then you can expand it. You can make it bigger, make it smaller. You can do the same thing with triangles like so. It's not that great. It's kind of slow and sluggish, and it shouldn't take 3 seconds for the little box to show up. That's just a little bit too long for someone that needs to get into drafting, and there's no other options. Unlike an Onyx, you have little lines and colors and weights and shape selections and dots. Just there's so little here to work with, and this is post update. This is the latest possible update. And you have Paper Switch, which gives you a decent amount of templates at the back, but the overall lack of function in the note-taking experience definitely hurts. It's not like Kyobo took 10 years off from being note-taking to being note-taking. This is their first crack at it, and they've chosen, unfortunately, Meebook, which is a less than exemplary candidate when it comes to note-taking. Meebook does note-taking okay, but not exceptionally. They don't do exceptionally. They do have things like reading calendar that has their own little individual elements you can click on and stuff like that. You can write over there, write over there, write over there, and deep dive into things. It's kind of like the Fujitsu interactable PDFs, but overall it does kind of land a little bit on its face when it comes to features and overall fun. It's a small screen. The pen is completely unimpressive, the one that comes with it, and it really doesn't offer anything we haven't seen before, and that is a lot of the fault of them going to a white label solution rather than making something on their own. Google Play on board, Wacom note-taking, and expandable storage makes this a very familiar experience. On the flip side, however, it's a carbon copy of the Meebook, it's incredibly slow, and the only proprietary features are locked into the Korean market. We understand that this unit is not necessarily meant to be internationally accepted, and to their credit they do have Google Play as we said, rendering their proprietary services rather moot. All things considered, it's an interesting approach as no company has ever white-labeled a Meebook before. Not only that, South Korea finally has its hands in the cookie jar in the hyper-competitive ebook reader space.